Cool. So thank you ever so much for having me here today. My name is Michael Harding, and this is Pitch Perfect. So a little bit about who I am. I've kind of hacked the public speaking thing because I've been doing it since 11 years old, including tap, jale. Wow, my English is terrible. Tap, jazz, and ballet since 11 years old. Cool me, right? I've been doing blockchain education since 2019, was lucky enough to be educated by a director of JP Morgan. From there, started educating family offices and then their portcos. So worked with Paramount, Fairtrade, Activision Blizzard, and Manchester United Foundation. My background was working in the alcohol industry, scaling alcohol businesses, and basically connecting up footballers that I knew to become angel investors in those startups. And because of that, that's where I originally got my investor network that I had. Then what's happened from there, built out, worked with Superteam UK, doing events in BD. I've worked with various different super teams, Vietnam, and also Indonesia most recently. How Demo Days, which we run, which is one called 20x20, which we run with Mechanism Capital. Most recently, we did one in Vietnam with Galaxy Digital, Mechanism Capital, Rockaway X, Monolith, and several others. We've done several intros in the space, one of them being connecting Moonboy Studios, Superteam UK project, to Jamie King from Rockstar Games, Triton with Raikou, Mechanism Capital. We did a roundtable where they met Magic Block. So that's a little bit about us. We've worked with several hackathon winners from Colosseum from both Superteam UK and Superteam Vietnam, helping them on their pitches and on their projects, doing BD across the ecosystem. And this is a little example of the kind of events that we do. This is 20x20, but you can find that on my Twitter. You can catch that much later. That was the 20x20. Cool. So lesson objectives. We are here to talk about your pitch, your structure of your pitch, and to make sure that you have a clear message that gets to investors in a very short period of time. So we want to learn the basics of how to speak, number one, in public, online, and when you're presenting your business, and ultimately overcoming your fears. We understand that the number one fear on the planet is actually public speaking. It's not sharks, it's not tigers, it's not heights, it's speaking in front of other people, which for me is a shame because that means that some of the greatest ideas just simply won't get out there because of this fear that nobody in the world is really, there's no like practice to go to and go and get your public speaking fear fixed like there is with arachnophobia. So next is to understand how to structure a pitch and presentation. So after seeing around probably 75 pitches in the last 2 months and working with a lot of these VCs quite closely, literally side by side, we start to understand the structure that VCs are looking for. And then ultimately, the magic investor formula that I've learned from my time in this space that all investors are looking for. And the ultimate thing that you have to take away from this is that common sense is not common. So I want you to type that in the chat for me, just so that I know that you've understood that common sense isn't common. And then we'll carry on as soon as I've made sure that everybody knows that. Let's just check. There we go. Okay, brilliant. So let's move on. So the basics. Like I said, common sense isn't common. One of the first mistakes that I see people do all the time whenever it comes to presenting their business is they don't even say their own name. They introduce their pitch and they don't say who they are. Like, you're basics of being a human being. Introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Michael, which I'm now realizing I'm also a culprit of this because I don't think I did that today. So look, there you go. I'm guilty of it myself. So hi, everybody. My name is Michael Harding, and I'm from Foundation Ventures, and I'm here to talk to you today about pitching. Now, the next bit is questions are the answers. Now, what do I mean by questions are the answers? That means that by asking the right questions, you can get to the answers that the other person is looking for. So sometimes these questions, you can answer them yourself by doing a little bit of research on the investor you're about to talk to. Very, very simple thing you can do is find out about this investor, go on their LinkedIn, go on their website, go on their Twitter, look at recent investments that they've made, look at their portco, look at the activities that they've partaken in. Sometimes they might even have pictures that might have said that it was that they like paddle or that they like archery. Now this allows you to be a little bit more relatable when it comes to your conversation. Now this allows you, by looking at their port code, to be able to say one of your opening sentences, hey there, I recently realized that you invested in this project called GoGoJack. GoGoJack, I see that it's a gaming company. We're actually, with our project, looking to work with gaming companies exactly like GoGoJack. It'd be great, regardless of the outcome, to find a way of connecting to that project and bringing value to your port code. That way, you're giving a hook straight away at the start for them to want to be able to connect to you and stay connected. So the next one is background and context. It is absolutely essential for you to give the background and context of why you have an unfair advantage as a founder with this project. Because, say, for example, with Signtrade, I'm going to pick on you guys in this example, right? You're doing a music project. There is tons of other people, not just in the UK, but around the world, because we live in a globalized world, doing music-based projects. You need to clearly state to the investor why you have the unfair advantage. What makes it special about you as the founder for your niche? Let's say, for example, you're doing something in the art space. Did you go to art college? Did you understudy from Banksy? I don't know, whatever it is, but try and find a unique selling point about yourself and put that in at the start. One of the ultimate things you need to do if you're an exited founder is say that. Even if you had a small exit and you only exited a business for 20K or 30K, still include that, because that shows that you've got experience running a business. Depending on what university you went to and what you studied, include that. As long as the background and the context that you have is relevant to what you're doing, this makes a massive impact in terms of whether an investor is going to carry on reading about what you're doing. So say, for example, again, certified rubbish. Putting the context that you have the background in that industry of however many years experience now makes me go, oh, okay, these guys are relevant to talk about what they're talking about. Rather than saying, I used to play football for 15 years and now I'm going into the recycling and rubbish industry. Straight away, I'd be like, this guy doesn't have a clue what they're talking about, why they're even in this industry, why they're even doing this business. And then lastly is a thank you and your name and company and questions. So why would you want to say thank you? One, because it shows you're a human being and you're humble and you're polite. And if an investor is going to invest in you, they're probably going to have to work with you for the next 5 to 10 years of their life. It's a bit like a marriage. It's a relationship. So they want to know that they actually would enjoy spending time with you and that you're humble and you have manners and so on and so forth. And lastly, again, the name of your company and your name. Why? Because investors see tons of pictures, tons of pitch decks. They will forget you. Like, just being honest, they will forget about you. And they'll go, oh, yeah, I saw this project and it was doing this, it was doing this thing, but I can't remember what it was called. I can't remember their name. That's simply because you probably didn't repeat your name and your company name enough times when doing the actual presentation. And then finally is questions, is asking the investor or the VC, is there any questions that you'd like to ask at this stage? Because if an investor is asking even one question, that means that there is, sometimes they'll do it to be polite, but the majority of the time, if they have questions, that is a sign of interest. Now, why you want to get them to ask questions is because then if you don't have the answers, you can then have an excuse to follow them up in regards to the questions that they asked. And fortune is in the follow-up. Follow-up is absolutely key to be able to say, hi, I remember our conversation. You asked me about these things. I've actually, in the last 2 weeks, done this. We actually got this partnership. We actually got these customers. It'd be great to talk to share that information with you and perhaps do a follow-up and tell you about our progress. Always find a way of leaving the door open for continuous conversation. So the next is the basics. So this is the basics of the different types of funding. So one of the things that we see often is people run straight to VC funding. And in my opinion, VC funding is probably the last type of funding that you want to go for, because it's kind of like a train. It's a train that once you get onto the VC funding route, you can't get off it. That's it now. You're in that cycle. You're in that race. One of the biggest problems with VC funding is it takes up 90% of the founder's time. Whoever is leading out that VC fundraise is going to take up a lot of your time. And I see time after time that businesses die and go under because the founder is so focused on the fundraise they just forget about the business. They're just like, and then they forget about bills and they forget about their treasury and all of the rest. So here are some of the different types of funding that are available. One of them is broken down into two. So you have debt and you have equity. So debt funding is pretty much what it says. This is where you're going to, most of the time, a bank and getting a business loan out for your business. You show them your business model, you show them your pitch, and then they will give you a line of credit, and basically you have debt on your business. This is a traditional model that's worked for a very long time, but a lot of people in the blockchain space simply don't do it because they're very anti the establishment and anti the banks. However, in some cases, this may be the best option for you if you have a clear revenue strategy. If you are clearly generating revenue and you know that you can afford to take on that debt and pay back that interest, especially if you can get a low interest rate of like 5 to 10%, then you know that you can manage that. But at this point, this is where you'd want to talk to a financial advisor and a CFO to make sure that that is a calculatable risk that is worth doing. Next is equity. So equity is literally where you are giving out a slice of your company. This is what is most common in the investing landscape. And there is also obviously in our space is where you have tokens, so token warrants. Then we have several that are very unheard of and people don't take advantage of enough. One is invoice financing. This is basically whereby when you have a set of continuous invoices from a client or customer, this is now where you can go to companies and they will basically bunch a couple of your invoices together and give you a cash advance in for those invoices so that you can operate and continue doing your business, because they know that you've got these contracts and these invoices that come in on a regular basis. Invoice financing is very similar to revenue financing, similar kind of thing. It's based on the amount of revenue that you have and you generate. A company will basically give you X amount of that revenue as a cash advance. So let's say, for example, you're revenuing 500K per year. In some cases, you'll be able to get a revenue finance deal of 100K to go into your business. And then lastly is asset financing. This is now if you have some kind of asset. So this is if you're doing a business and you have loads of hardware, you have loads of stock, merchandise, or anything like this. You can now get a loan against the assets that you have in your business. So let's say, for example, the cost of your assets, in this case, you might be doing dumbbells. You might have like gym training gear, right? The cost of the gym training gear, you've spent 500K on that. They would then calculate what the asset value of that is and the depreciation value of it is. They might say, well, the depreciation value is 200K, so we're willing to give you a loan of 100K against the inventory that you already have. So this is another form of financing that most people don't know exists. Then we have the traditional Web3 ones, which is your ICO, where you basically launch a token, or your TGE, as we call it, token generation event. Then we have launch pads, and then obviously we have equity as well. So let's go on to the next one. So this has changed over time. And the reason I've got Kenpachi, my favorite anime hero here, is because there is several death zones here where projects come and they die off, unfortunately. So we have the different phases. So you have your pre-seed phase, and this is normally where, and how long it normally takes to raise in this area is around 3 months to do this kind of raise. This is normally where you're going to angels, or people, friends and family round to get that first bit of capital in. At this point, you should have clear problem and solution fit, and you should have a bit of a product, a minimum viable product, an MVP built out at this stage. Next is your 6 months phase. So we see a lot of projects not make it from pre-seed to seed. That's the first area of death where people just don't make it, just because they can't get the next bit, which is the product market fit, which is actually the traction. So they've got the MVP, they've got the idea, but they just can't get the wheels to hit the ground and users and people and customers to start using their product. So this is where the next area, which is seed, which normally a raise here will take you around 6 months time. So make sure that if you're at this stage, you prepare and you have blocked out 6 months for this type of fundraise. Because again, what often happens is people don't have the burn rate, a long enough burn rate or the long enough capital in the bank to keep them running for that period to do that raise. Now, this is where people always mess up, is the gap between the seed and the Series A, because this is the chunk where it's going to take the longest amount of time. sometimes in this period, this can take you 12 months to raise. So if you haven't already put that 12 months capital aside, what often happens is this is where businesses die, because they haven't got the money aside to keep on running for that 12 months without raising that capital. So keep that in mind. Now, this is normally 12 months, and it's going to cost you in around 100K in legal fees. So you also need to have that put to the side. At this stage, this is now where the bigger VCs are all going to start aping in, because now you've already got the product market fit, you've already got the customers, and now it's just about scale. Now it's about scaling your business and adaptability and moving with the trends in the markets. And then finally, you have the Series B and Series C. And then in some cases at this stage, companies get acquired. And this is all about the growth. So this is where companies are looking for you to go from 10 million users to 100 million users. And they just basically want to give you their money like rocket fuel and go, hey, yes, more money for me. So the types of exits that we have here, we have the acqui-hires. So an acqui-hire is where somebody acquires your company for the staff. They're not actually acquiring the business. They just like the talent that's there. They will take your company off you just because they want you to come and work for their company. Companies like Visa and MasterCard do this all the time. Next, you have the rockstar exits, where you get acquired by like your WhatsApp or your Facebook, and it goes all over the sun, and you get interviewed on TV and so on and so forth. And then you have your private equity financial buyers. This is where they see the amount of money that you're making, and that's all you are to them. You're just a cash cow where they're like, right, if we buy this company, there's just tons of cash that this company is turning over. Let's come in, take the company. They'll probably get rid of most of your team. And then they will just squeeze every single penny out of the company. And then next is a strategic acquisition. This is where a company, say, for example, we see this in the space all the time, like what's happened recently with MoonPay and Helio, where it's a strategic hire. You're working in a niche that they're interested in, or you have a tech that they're interested in, or maybe you have customers that they're trying to cross-sell to. And then, so that's the key ones there. So the reasons why I mentioned this is because the first thing you need to know is who you're going to exit to. Investors love to know what is your plan for an exit, because if you don't know what your plan is for an exit, how are you planning on making the investor money? If I said to you, okay, cool, come and invest in my project, and I couldn't tell you how I was going to give you the money back, why would I be interested? So it's very key that you have identified potential exits for yourself. The easiest way to identify potential exits is find the biggest and the best companies in your sector, in your industry, and add people from those companies on LinkedIn and ask them to give you feedback and advice on your project. Cool. So next one is, okay, so there's a bit of swearing here. I hope you don't mind. So the easiest way how to get told to that word up there, I'm not going to say it because I don't know if there's anyone under the age of 18. So if you haven't had any type of friends or family round, if you've had nobody invest in your project and you're now trying to say that you're doing a raise of $10 million and no one's invested in your project up to now, you're probably going to get told by the VC, like, mate, like, you completely skipped the pre-seed round. You have no angels. You haven't even got a family member to invest 5K into your business. You haven't even managed to get any other business partners. It's very, very unlikely that you're going to get much further. So they want to see that other people have validated your product and invested in you very, very early on. Now, you're in the Solana ecosystem where there is tons of projects that I have seen do friends and family rounds and get in the angel investors from in the Solana community. This is one of the best things about Solana, is the angel community that is there from other builders and other people in and around the space. Even sometimes in Somerset House, that with the build stop community that we have there. Now, next is not having an MVP. Because of the world that we live in now with AI, not having an MVP is inexcusable. Like, I could make an MVP using Liverpool for most projects in less than 4 hours. My mom can make an MVP for most people's business ideas. So not having even the basic raw demo of what you're doing at the moment in the world that we live in because of AI is a straight way to get told to go away. Next is also not having a demo. having a demo and showing that what you have got, you've actually visualized and put to practice, again, is a big no-no. Most VCs won't reply back if you don't have a demo. Just simple, because then it's just an idea. And they want to see that you're beyond an idea, because guess what? Ideas are free. Execution is where what really matters. And loads of people have ideas. And now we have the internet, and now we have ChatGPT. So there's an overabundance of ideas. Next is that you don't have a CTO. If you're a lot of investors don't like dev shops, because that means you don't have the control over your own business. That means you don't have the control over any adaptations or any changes that you need to make to your business, be it legal, be it compliance, be it market changes. You need to have your own CTO, because it also shows that you've managed to find a high quality developer that wants to work with you and believes in your idea. So that you've got the second person that believes in your concept and your idea. The next one is asking for an NDA. Please do not ask big VCs for an NDA. They will laugh in your face, because they get projects sent to them all day, every day. You are not that special of a project to them. They've seen the ideas before. So please don't ask VCs or angels to sign an NDA before you send them your pitch deck. Next is try to make your pitch deck less than 15 pages. Anything more than 15 pages, they don't care. They're going to get bored. They're going to switch off. Literally, I've seen them do it whereby you send them a pitch deck and they see that it's got 20 to 30 pages, and they go, "No, I'm not even going to open it. It's a waste of time. It's got too many pages." So try to have less than 15 pages. Next is zero traction. This is inexcusable in my books, because if you have 0 people on your wait list or pre-registration or 0 customers, that doesn't make any sense. Because why aren't you your own customer? Why isn't your team the customer? I've literally seen this, and I've asked this to founders before. They're like, "Oh, we've got nobody on our wait list." I'm like, "You've got a team of 5. So why is there not even 5 people using your product?" It doesn't make any sense. So the first people that should be using your product is a term called dog fooding. You need to use your own product yourself. And then you need to obviously be talking to friends, family. And again, Build Stop is the perfect, there is literally, I've not seen it in my entire time working with entrepreneurs, a perfect environment to go around and get that wait list, to get that pre-registration, to get those early users to try your product and to give you feedback. Next is to not say hello. It's to just literally get a VC's contact on LinkedIn or something like that and just go, "Here's my pitch deck." Don't do that. Like they'll just be like, "You didn't even say hello. You wasn't even a human being. Like, at least say hello to me." Next is this is getting a little bit more juicy. No plan to scale. Investors are looking roughly for a 30% at your stage, early stages, roughly around 30% growth. At a minimum, 30% year-on-year growth. At a minimum. Ideally, if you can get 30% month-on-month growth of the amount of users or money that you're bringing, revenue that you're generating, this is what people are looking for. They're looking for high growth projects. And then next is no plan for an update. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here, and I'm going to mention a product that hasn't had an update for years. There's a project called MetaMask. I don't know how they got away with it, but please don't be MetaMask. Make sure that you are updating and have a plan for updating your business as time goes by. Because if you are not doing software updates and you don't have a plan to do an update or a V2 or a V3 or a V4 of what you are releasing, it shows that you're just not up to date with the times. Because how many times is your phone updated? How many times do apps update on your phone? All the time. Constantly updating. So this you need to have in your roadmap, that you have plans for updates. Okay, so first bit of the formula. So the first bit of the formula of how to create an elevator pitch, or how to create the basic structure of what you're doing, is your prop X and Y equals Z. So X in this case is we help. Y in this case is with. And Z is what you accomplish. So we help these people with this and accomplish this result. That's what you need in a sentence for your elevator pitch. This can then extend into being your pitch deck. But obviously, your pitch deck, you don't want to follow this formula exactly. This is more for like an elevator pitch. So everyone here can do this. Write down who you help, what with, and the results you help them accomplish. And if you've got it, You then mention the traction and the product market fit. So the repetition. So I'll give an example. We help super teams and super team projects and founders with their investor readiness and pitches. We've helped several projects be invested in by VCs, and we have done this across multiple super teams. Does that make sense? So that's exactly the same way that you would do it. So break it down into problem and audience, solution, results, and the repetition. Because the repetition is the key part. Because a lot of people with their businesses, they don't want to admit that they got lucky. Especially in Web3 in 2017, 2020, it was just a momentum trend. And pretty much anyone could release almost anything and money would come into their project. Now, a lot of people think they can do the same thing. You need to be able to get a result over and over again. In my opinion, you should be able to get the result that you've got for one person at a minimum of 5 times, repeated it 5 times. Now you have traction. Now you have proof of concept. Cool. So let's go on to the next one. So the next one is another little parable. Seek to understand before you seek to be understood. So before you go into an investor meeting, you really want to understand an investor's portcos. So what are the portcos? That is the projects that they have in their investment portfolio. You really want to understand their thesis. So the worst thing that I see all the time is a project going into a meeting with a VC that's not interested in AI and going, oh yeah, we're doing this AI thing and it's all about this AI LLM that we're going to do. And they hate AI. So you might want to just look at their portfolio, look at their website, and see if they're even interested in the niche that you want to open up with. Sometimes it just requires a tiny little pivot. Sometimes you don't need to mention a part of it. So let's say, for example, a lot of investors are just not fans of crypto. So you just wouldn't mention the crypto part. You would mention the value that you're bringing to the customers in your space. You don't need to mention the token. Oh, we're launching a token and it's going to do this. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Sometimes you just need to mention the value that you're bringing to your customers. And that's what they're interested in. So what you want to do is you want to describe your customer or find some relatability in their portcos. Find a potential project in their portfolio that's on their website that could be a potential customer for you. Next is ask for permission to send a deck. Please always ask for permission to send a deck. It's very, very simple. Just simply ask, is it all right if I send you my deck? It's not hard, but it actually makes a massive difference because, again, it shows that you're polite. It shows that you're a human being. Next is ask for availability. Please don't presume that people are available because investors, a lot of the time, some of them are very busy. Some of them just pretend to be busy and they're floating around in Bali and in Dubai and whatever. But please always ask for their availability. Never presume that they are available and that you are the greatest gift since sliced bread. And always, in my opinion, chase criticism, not compliments. So you don't want to actually be looking for compliments about how great your business is. You want to be looking for areas that you can improve and then actually come back to them and improve on it. You want to be looking for criticism that you can take into your next VC meeting and say, look, we spoke to this VC. They said that we should change this. We've actually done this. Would love to hear your opinion as well. And ultimately, fortune is in the follow-up. Cool. So emotion versus logic. This is my favorite thing in the world. So I spent some time, very, very fortunately, working for Coca-Cola and at the 2012 Olympics and also with LVMH for a brief while. And one of the things that I noticed is that Bernard Arnault has been the richest man in the world several times over. He does not sell anything based on its technical ability. He sells pure emotion. That's what he sells. So does anybody need actually a Birkin bag? Does anybody actually need a $3,000 Louis Vuitton handbag? Does anybody actually need a Cartier bracelet? Does anybody actually need a Ferrari? No. But what are they selling? And why do they do so well? They sell an emotion. They sell a story. They sell a sense of belonging. So the other one that I'm going to use as an example is McDonald's. Type in the chat what you believe McDonald's sells. And the answer isn't real estate. Let's see if we've got anybody that knows. Cap knows. So yeah, the answer is happiness. McDonald's have been selling you happiness since you were 4 years old because they sell you a Happy Meal. So wherever you are in the world, the one thing that people associate with McDonald's is actually safety. So wherever you are in the world, you'll probably experience this yourself. If you need the bathroom or if you're unsure of what to eat, you'll just find the nearest McDonald's and go there because you know it's a place of safety because that's where you've been going for food and to use the bathroom since you were however years old. And then the ultimate example of emotion versus logic is the Apple iPhone. In my opinion, the Apple iPhone is the most overrated thing on the planet. Sorry to all you Apple fans out there, because the Apple phone doesn't even do this. It doesn't even fold out. It doesn't even have a pen. But why does Samsung not sell as well as Apple devices? Because they keep trying to sell the logic. They keep trying to sell how amazing the tech is, how amazing like the megapixel camera is. But Apple don't sell that. Apple sell being part of the community. Apple sell an ecosystem. Apple sell an emotional feeling. And this is what you need to do in your deck. You need to find the emotional part of what you're selling and lean into it. Emotion sells. Facts tell, stories sell. And emotion always sells. So find the emotional angle of what you're doing and lean into it at the start of your pitch. In the first 2 pages, you want to hit someone with some kind of emotion because people don't forget the way that you've made them feel. Ever. You probably still right now remember the way that somebody made you feel in primary school, good or bad. You never ever forget these things. So always focus, but I bet you don't remember some of the basic algebra that you got taught because that's logic. The brain isn't designed to remember logic. We're designed to remember emotions. Cool. Let's go on to the next bit. Okay, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So one of these exercises we can't do because I'm not physically in the room with you, but one of the most important things you can understand when it comes to your pitch is tone. And this is why capital letters via messages are dangerous. I'll give you an example. In my family, my uncle always types in capital letters. So when he says that he's coming round for lunch or he's going to pass by, my mom's always like, why is he shouting at me? Why is he always shouting at me? And they've had arguments about this where my mom seems to think that my uncle is shouting at her. And I'm like, no, he's not shouting. He just doesn't turn caps lock off. That's all it is. So this is where text allows people to read into your messages the way that they want. This is why it's important to try and get the opportunity to be able to pitch something via call like this or in person, not via a long blurb and a long message, because VCs get this all the time. So I'll give you an example of how powerful tone is. So there's this sentence here that I learned in drama school, and I'm going to show you how dangerous tone can be. So I did not say he beat his wife. 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 So hopefully there you saw that every time I changed where I placed the tone in the sentence, and it meant that the sentence meant something completely different every single time. So the words that you are using in your pitch deck are very, very important. You need to look at, if you are trying to raise millions of pounds, then you need to put in millions of pounds worth of time into choosing the exact right words that are in your pitch deck so that you have double-checked, triple-checked with other people to see if that sentence can be perceived or received in a different way or manner. Because depending on someone's day, depending on what's going on in the world and news and media, they might receive that sentence in a completely different way. Next is passion. Whenever you get an opportunity to actually present your pitch, please do it with passion. Please never get into a pitch with a VC that you've been waiting for ages and be like, yeah, so we're basically doing this project. It's basically we're going to use the algorithm, and it's going to basically allow us to find these customers, and then they're going to be really happy because we're going to put them onto Solana and do a token. Please don't do that. If you feel that way, work with somebody else, get a partner, that will do the pitch for you with a bit of avavoom, with a bit of stapa or whatever the term is, bit of energy, right? And then you be in the call to answer questions if that's the way that you feel. Okay, so tell me a story. So this is what I have found seems to be the best breakdown of structure for a pitch. Number one is introducing the solution, because people see tons of pitch decks all the time. So telling a long story, people don't want to see that. They want to see a solution, and that solution is the founders most of the time. So there is Sequoia Capital put out the template for how to do a pitch deck. I disagree with it personally, because they say to put the team at the end. But what if the person reading it doesn't get to the end of your pitch deck, and the founders are amazing, and they're investing in you as a person? What if you're an exited founder, but you put that at the end? You need to, in my opinion, you should put the team at the start. Just because we are in a world now where numbers of everything has increased. So being unique as a founder, that is what is unique to you. So straight away, who you are is the most valuable thing. You are the most valuable asset in your company. So you want to introduce it like a team of the Avengers, that you've had relatable jobs to the company that you're building, or that you've exited a team. Next, you want to set the scene, which is describing the problem and the villain. This is where the emotion can come in, really expanding how bad and how evil and how much of a chore or how much of a pain that problem is. And then next is the magic moment. So this is the USP, the unfair advantage that you have as a founder. It's kind of like the lightsaber moment, or the moment that Spider-Man realizes that he can web swing. That's the kind of vibe that you want somebody to emotionally feel when reading your pitch deck. Cool. So the magic formula. So happy to share this formula with you. The magic formula is 1 + 1 = 10. I told you that common sense isn't common, but this is exactly what all investors are looking for. They are looking for your pitch deck to say to them, okay, 1 + 1 = 10. What do I mean by 1 + 1 = 10? That means you're revenuing 100K, they're going to give you 100K, and now your company is going to revenue 10 million. That's what they're looking for. So when I said you need to show the maths, that's the maths that you need to show. You need to show how, by the investor giving you money, does that turn into more money for the investor? And normally at a 10x to 20x scale. If you can't work that out, then what's missing is these 4 things, or some of these things. You need to figure out your revenue strategies, whether that's having an additional revenue stream, whether that's finding a way to increase your margins and say to the investor, by working with you, we take our and getting that investment that we need, we can now get this thing produced, or increase our marketing. And it means that our margins now go from 50% to 90%. That is interesting, because then it means all you got to do is scale and you make crazy amounts of money. The same thing with partnerships. You've got to have partnerships. And again, in the Solana ecosystem, you have tons of partnerships available for you, like crazy amounts. There is no better ecosystem for startups to be able to actually obtain these partnerships with established companies. So again, showing that you've got these partnerships is some form of traction. And lastly is distribution. So why distribution? Because taking this from the founder of Twitch, first-time founders, what do they look for? They look for investment. Second-time founders, what do they look for? They look for distribution. I learned this when I was in the alcohol industry, and I'll give you an example. So what a lot of people would do is they would go to individual corner stores to try and sell these new bottles of alcohol. What I would do is I would go to chains. I would do B2B business. I would try and find an owner that owned maybe 50 stores, or I'd go to a chain like Brewdog or like Revolution or anything like that, because I knew if I managed to sell that one person, it now opened up a distribution network of maybe 150 stores, which means that the amount of units that they're going to order is massive. Now that I have that order for, instead of it being 50,000 units, it's now 1.5 million units. Now that's attractive to an investor. If you're saying to an investor, by the way, we have 1.5 million units or 1.5 million potential customers through this partnership that we've just established. However, what we need is the money to be able to go and service this need. That makes sense to an investor. That is the 1 + 1 equals 10. And lastly is the exit side. Is showing that you have a plan to exit, that you have a company that you want to get acquired by, like I mentioned before. So finding someone from that company that you want to get acquired by, and then having them as an advisor in your business. Cool. So final bit of bonus is something called Rich versus King. This is an amazing book that I recommend everybody to read, along with another one called Venture Deals. And what is Rich versus King? It's I believe it's a Harvard-based study about the different types of founders that exist. You have founders that want to be rich. They just want to get an exit. They want to make a couple of £1 million. Happy days. You have founders that want to be king. They want to own their company for as long as possible. They have no exit plan at all. They want to eventually get to the IPO stage and run that company forever. This is where a lot of founders and co-founders fall out. And VCs know this. And very early on, they will ask you questions to figure out if you've figured this out. Because if you haven't, it causes problems when it comes to selling the company. It causes problems when it comes to the exit, which is where the VCs make their money. So they want to know that you've got this figured out already. And it's something that is very, very critical that between you and your co-founders, you figure out which side do you want to be on. Are you aiming to be rich and get an exit, or are you aiming to be king? Depending on where you are in your journey and in your life, it might be different things. If you've got a family, if you're having kids, if someone's got ill, you might want to be rich rather than being king. Depending on what you're doing and what industry you're in and how much you believe in it and the insights and the alpha you've got, you might want to be king. I'll give an example of one of the startups that I worked with very, very early on in Manchester. This project was doing revenue of around 300K per year. It was a clothing brand. They got offered by JD Sports to be bought out for around 900K. So that was 3 times the revenue that they had. They declined this opportunity. However, what happened a couple of months later is JD just basically copied their brand and started selling it across all their stores, and then their brand basically died down. However, if they had taken that exit, they would have now had 900K, and they would have had all the distribution networks from JD, and they would have had all the advertising and marketing contacts, and they would have been able to say that they're an exited founder, which then basically doing their next idea would have been 10 times easier. So you have to see that there's pros and cons to being rich or being king. So here's some of the books that I would highly, highly recommend that you take a screenshot and find these books. I actually stole this one off Cap. I need to give it him back. As you can see, I've read it several times because it's getting all dog-eared. Probably one of the best books I've ever stolen. I have got other books from Cap here that I've stolen from him as well. Haven't got around to that one yet. But yeah. So yes, Cap is a fountain of knowledge. See if there's any books that you can steal from him. So one of the ones is Blue Ocean Strategy. Definitely want to read that. Venture Deals, you want to read that. It's about term sheets. And then ultimately How to Win Friends and Influence People just teaches you how to be a great human being and network well. And so what we have here is a little bit of a quiz for the last 60 seconds. We'll quickly run through this. These are basic terms and terminology that you need to know when approaching investors. If they ask you these questions and you don't know them, you're going to look a bit silly. So the first one is CAC, C-A-C. You may know this, but this is one of the golden things investors look for. If anybody knows it, type it in the chat. Give me 10 seconds. And the answer to this one is customer acquisition cost. If you don't know how much it costs you to acquire a customer, you've still got more work to do. Next is CAGR. Does anybody know what CAGR is? Any clues? 10 seconds to type that one in the chat. That is compound annual growth rate. So how much is your company growing on a month-by-month or year-by-year basis? Again, we spoke about this very, very early on. Next is ARPU. What's your ARPU, mate? How's your ARPU doing? Anybody know this one? Give you 10 seconds to type this one in. ARPU. There we go. Got some answers coming through. Anybody know? This is average revenue per user. If you don't know how much money you're making from your average customer, what are you doing? So again, some of these are abbreviations that the VCs might catch you out on that you didn't know. You might know the answer, but you don't know the abbreviation. Cool. So the next one is MRR and ARR. We've kind of done this one already. Mentioned it before. monthly recurring revenue, and annual recurring revenue. Super simple. Next one is OPEX. People love saying this in Web3. What's your OPEX? Yeah, my OPEX is about this much this month. So you need to know this, because this is also known as your burn rate, which is very, very key. Operating expenses. You kind of need to know how much it's costing you to run your business. If you don't, straight away, VC is going to lose interest. Next. Oh, we already got that one. Okay, EBITDA. This is for the ones that like reading earnings reports like me, because I'm a big nerd. So this is, anybody know? Especially if you have any kind of physical assets, this is important. I know a couple of you do. I believe one of you has a physical item. Some of you have physical items. So this is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Very important that you know this one. And I think that is the last one. Nope. Final one, FCF. It's not a nightclub. It's not a football club. It is your free cash flow. This is the money. How much money do you have, basically? That's what it is. Cool. So I believe, yeah, the final one was churn and burn. But churn is basically how many customers you're losing on a monthly basis. It's okay to lose customers, but you need to know what your churn rate is of your customers. And burn is just how much money you're spending. Cool. That is that from me. I've been Michael Harding. Hope you've enjoyed that. I've got 2 minutes to take any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you. Cheers, Michael. Nice round of applause for being able to come and join us and drop the knowledge. And yeah, if there's any questions, now's the time.
What about pitching in CSR terms? Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so obviously we do a lot of like sustainability, environmental stuff. So we're thinking about pitching it in terms of like CSR responsibilities. But...
Yeah. So when it comes to your, how would I angle this? Again, it depends on the investor profile. If your investor is interested in CSR, then talk about it. A lot of people try to pile in the United Nations sustainability goals, but some VCs just don't care. That's the honest truth. If investors cared about changing the world more than money, then the world would be a better place already. But unfortunately, that's not the way that the world works. There is a small handful of investors that actually really care about the impact that your project's going to make. And there is a special term for them. They are impact investors. So that's probably what you want to look for, is your impact investors. That's what they're looking for. So it's about knowing who you're pitching and knowing their portcos and knowing their portfolios. One thing on that for a lot of you businesses here, something I would ask you to look at is something called SEIS and EIS. This allows you, the investors that are investing in you, to get a tax rebate on the money that they've put into you. So a lot of impact investors, they will invest if you have got this SEIS funding, just because they're kind of a bit like a charity where they're like, oh, okay. And a lot of footballers or musicians do this. They're like, oh yeah, I'm investing in this for a good cause. Yes, it's for a good cause, but it's also because they get their money back. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, great. Cool. Thank you.
Got time for one more?
I don't know if this is a bit, not a silly question, but on your slide deck, you had like moving pictures. Do you think that would be appropriate to put on like an actual pitch deck, and like, because it makes it a bit more engaging? That's all. And mine is, my business is very focused at like children. Obviously, I won't be pitching to children, but like, I feel like that would be like a nice, I don't know, like that would kind of fit well if I had something a bit more dynamic.
I always say it's if it's relevant. So again, it's the common sense is common, right? Isn't common. So if you are building something for children about children's safety and knives, probably not. If you're building something to do with children and engagement rates and attention, then it makes sense. but again, you don't want it to be too flashy. Mine's like this because this is kind of a representation of my brain and my personality. So I'm trying to show you, like, yeah, be like this. Like, this is it matches what I'm doing, right? And it keeps people engaged and keeps people looking, because that's what I want them to do. So if it matches what you're doing, I'm happy to have a look once you kind of do that, and give you some feedback.
Cool, thank you.
Perfect. I've got to shoot off because I'm late for another call now, but thank you ever so much. I'm going to be at Build Stop this Friday if any of you are around. I try to be there once a month. I try to be there. I love talking to people, as Cap will tell you. Any excuse to talk to people and help people out and connect people, that is what I like to do. So absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and hopefully I'll see some of you on Friday.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael.
See you guys later. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
We'll close it off. Enjoy the next workshops in the next couple of days. Tomorrow you have a break, and then we're back on it Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Cool. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.